There's a major fight brewing in Minnesota right now. And really, it's more than just a legal battle. It's this huge clash over what civil rights even mean when they're up against federal power. At the very center of it all is a lawsuit that could honestly change everything. So, let's break it all down.
Okay, listen to these words. This is straight from the lawsuit. It's not just some dry legal speak, right? This is a direct shot, an accusation that a federal operation is actually tearing apart the social fabric of Minnesota.
All right, so here's how we're going to unpack this whole thing. First, we'll get into the lawsuit itself. Then we're going to hear the really personal stories of two citizens who got caught right in the middle of this. After that, we'll look at the government side, their official justification, before zooming out to see the tense atmosphere on the ground. And finally, we'll tackle that huge, fundamental question at the heart of it all.
So, at its core, what are we looking at? This is a direct challenge from the American Civil Liberties Union, you know them as the ACLU, and it's aimed squarely at the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security.
And you know, this is not just some minor complaint they filed. We're talking about a massive 72-page document. It details what the ACLU is calling widespread and systemic misconduct. This is a full-on legal assault.
Okay, so what's actually in those 72 pages? What are the specific things the ACLU is alleging are, unconstitutional?
The main argument here is that this isn't about a few isolated incidents. No, the lawsuit alleges a deliberate strategy. We're talking widespread racial profiling, specifically zeroing in on Somali and Latino communities. It claims federal agents are making unlawful arrests without warrants and creating what the ACLU calls a crude dragnet that just sweeps up citizens and non-citizens alike in this climate of fear.
But look, these legal claims are all built on what's happening to real people. To prove that constitutional lines have actually been crossed, the lawsuit focuses on the stories of several U.S. citizens. Let's meet two of them.
So first up, there's Mubashir Khalif Hussain. He's a 20-year-old American citizen who, according to the lawsuit, was detained while doing something totally normal. He was just walking to get lunch in Minneapolis.
According to the lawsuit, he just kept repeating this simple, powerful phrase over and over. I'm a citizen. But the agents, they allegedly refused to even look at his ID, let alone acknowledge he was, in fact, a citizen.
The lawsuit lays out this absolutely terrifying series of events. It says it started with him being put in a headlock, right there on the street. From there, he was taken to a federal building, where he was allegedly shackled and fingerprinted. And the ordeal didn't even end there. In a totally separate encounter later on, he was apparently pepper sprayed just for filming the agents on a public sidewalk. This is the alleged experience of a U.S. citizen that's right at the heart of this case.
The second story involves Mohamed Idris, a 25-year-old citizen. He was doing, one of the most Minnesotan things you can imagine, shoveling snow with his mom outside their home, when he was suddenly surrounded by masked agents.
The lawsuit alleges a really clear pattern here of intimidation and profiling. It claims the agents never even said who they were or showed a warrant. They demanded his ID to prove he wasn't illegal, and they allegedly told his mother to remove her niqab, which is a religious face covering. They were even questioned just for speaking Somali, and then the agents just left. No explanation.
So, what does the federal government have to say about all this? How do they justify these actions? Well, the administration has a completely different story for why all these agents are in Minnesota in the first place.
And right here, you can really see the two completely different realities of this conflict. On one side, you've got the ACLU alleging this crude dragnet based on racial profiling, and on the other, the administration claims it's conducting targeted legal enforcement, focusing on undocumented folks who have criminal records to combat what it calls widespread fraud. They maintain their agents are acting lawfully and only using force when it's for self-defense.
You have to understand, this lawsuit didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It landed right in the middle of a pressure cooker of rising tension, a conflict that has been building for months between local communities, state officials, and the federal government.
This timeline really shows you just how fast things escalated. First, you had the surge, thousands of federal agents showing up in the state. Then, tensions just exploded with the tragic killing of Renee Good, a 37-year-old mother, by a federal agent. That killing set off intense protests all over the state, creating a massive political firestorm. And it was right in the middle of all that chaos that the ACLU filed this lawsuit.
And this isn't just a fight between activists and federal agents. Oh no, Minnesota's own governor, Tim Walz, has used some incredibly strong language here, calling the federal presence an invasion and a campaign of retribution. We're basically watching a state government in open conflict with the federal administration.
So all of this, the lawsuit, the protest, the political clash, it all boils down to one central tension. A question that honestly goes way beyond Minnesota.
This lawsuit is forcing us all to confront this really fundamental question. What are the limits of government power, even when it says it's pursuing a national security or immigration goal? I mean, where is that line?
And the ACLU's whole argument really hinges on this one point. The methods themselves are illegal. They're basically saying that it doesn't matter what the government's end goal is. If the tactics you use to get there are based on racial profiling and violate citizens' constitutional rights, then the entire operation is illegal. Full stop.
At the end of the day, the outcome of this case in Minnesota won't just affect the people there. It could help define where America as a whole draws that critical line between enforcement and liberty for years to come. That's it. For this explainer, thanks for tuning in.